Hello, dreamers. How are you doing? This is Will the Dreamer coming to you for the ninth episode in our series. This is basically a story of a heartland physician who participated in World War II. And interestingly, his contribution still has been felt till today. So this is his story. First of all, I tell you his upbringing and how he grew up in this area, Dr. James Kinder. And number two, I'll give you a little bit background about the Flying Tigers, and that's a U.S. airman helping China in the war against Japan. And the third part will be really James Kinder's involvement in the war, participation. And in conclusion, I would like to mention the impact that's felt today. Since we're all interrelated, one thing impacts another. Let me get started. Dr. James Kinder, growing up as a child, he was valedictorian of his high school, and he was admitted to Washington University, prestigious university, and he got into the medical school, a top-notch medical school at that time. And he went to a prestigious internship and training at St. Louis City Hospital at that time. The year was 1941 and bridging on and towards 1942. Now, let's give a little bit background in history. In 1941, in the early part, U.S. was not involved with war against Japan. The Chinese Air Force is rather weak. U.S. sent a volunteer group to help China, and it's not really official U.S. Air Force. This is under Colonel Chennault, and he's rather incredible person. He's quite a character. He's a Cajun. He's from Louisiana, and he has devised tactics never used before. Because the Japanese Zero has a different wing flap design, they can curve around and come very quick. So Colonel Chennault thinks there's really no face-to-face fight and curve around, and he devised that a U.S. warplane, fighter jets, has to go above and beyond the height of the Zero and come from above and attack, since a plane is much sturdier and can take deep dive and attack. Now, of course, the Japanese are surprised. They never faced such a strategy. And secondly, I've been told that if there's sun out, you cannot really see anything coming from above. The results are really most impressive. We lost 14 people, pilots and personnel, and that includes training, not just in the air war theater. The Japanese lost a total of 297 planes. Now, of course, this is a volunteer group called American Volunteer Group, AVG. And the nickname, they use Flying Tigers to just stick with it. But not everything, since it's not an official Air Force, it's not really recorded as official record. Now, when the U.S. was attacked by Japan during Pearl Harbor in December of 1941, U.S. entered the war in 1942. This Air Force has changed, and some of the original members left. However, a lot of them stayed on and enlisted in the official U.S. Air Force. So this is the official U.S. Force. However, they retain the name of Flying Tiger. So it's a little bit confusing. The first part is they are volunteer group, but later on they become the official U.S. Air Force fighter jet group, and they still retain this Flying Tiger. So let's go back to Dr. James Kinder. After he finished training at St. Louis City Hospital, he was put as a flight surgeon and chief medical officer and sent to the Chinese theater to help the Chinese, the Kuomintang, against Japan. And that's the Air Force base is at the southern part of China, because the northern part is invaded by Japan. It's not as easy as going through the Pacific because there's war going on. The Japanese have a lot of blockades and the jets over there. So it's a really long route. Dr. James Kinder left United States, went to island, the Azores Island, outside of Europe to refill, and go to Africa for another refill, and then make a jump to Karachi, which is modern-day Pakistan, for the final refill and fly over the Himalayas to avoid any Japanese to go down to southern China. So even just the journey is incredible. So let's talk about his experience in China. At that time, the southern part of China is rather poor, war, and there's limited resource. The food is really limited, and even for the wounded soldiers, there's limited care. Iodine and quinine and the mainstay. Remember, at that time, the antibiotics are not in common use at all. This is in 1942, 43, and we're talking about that time. Now, since the food is not very good, some of our servicemen went out to the city to get some food, and some end up with diarrhea, dysentery, and amoebic dysentery. Of course, we don't have any antibiotics. It's really hard to treat, and it's difficult. Now, with this regroup, official U.S. Air Force, Dr. Kinder made a few runs on the fighter jets himself, but he's mainly the medical officer. So this goes on from 43 to 1945. Dr. James Kinder came back to the United States and later on set up practice at Southeast Missouri as a pediatrician. Now, the Flying Tiger is a tight-knit group, and they have yearly reunion in 1960, 70, 1980, and 1990. And Dr. James Kinder passed away in the early 2000. So it's really not known whether some people are still coming for reunion, but everybody will be close to 100 by this time. Now, let me tie in about Dr. James Kinder's participation in helping the Chinese with the U.S. Air Force, and what's the impact and what is happening at this time. His son is very capable, Mr. Peter Kinder. He was elected as the lieutenant governor of Missouri, and with some other governors, they were visiting China around 2010, around that time. They were in Xiamen, a coastal city, and they were greeted by some officials. The governor just asked Peter Kinder, said that, well, do you have anything to say? I don't have anything to say. And Peter Kinder just remembered that his father served in the Flying Tiger and start telling the story. The officials immediately are very impressed, get their high-up officials to come, and they have a very warm reception, great respect and gratitude for the Flying Tigers, even years and years after the war. And there are memorials in that area. And fast forward to 2023, there was a U.S. delegation and organized by a U.S. personnel for the Flying Tigers to visit Kunming area, the former Air Force base, and tour of China. They got a personal reply letter from the President of China, Xi Jinping, welcomed them. And they received warm receptions, mainly the second and third generation. There are only 2 members of the origin group. One's 99 years old, the other one's 103. And they have tremendous reception, song, commemoration, and they are very well received. And the 103-year-old veteran has a huge birthday cake, much bigger the size of even a table. And they celebrate his birthday, and the group toured the Great Wall and others. And what's good coming out of this is that U.S. has pledged with the Chinese counterpart that they'll send 100 high school children in the spirit of the Flying Tiger helping the Chinese to exchange, to have one group go, Chinese group to go over to the United States, U.S. group to go over to China, to further the understanding and keep the memory of the Flying Tigers alive. Now, nowadays in this complex world, there's a lot of different opinions and a lot of different interests. But at least this is a common ground, and something that can be built on from this common ground, from friendship and further understanding. Now, in essence, around the world, people are no different. People want peace, and people want prosperity. At least this is a starting point. So dreamers, don't forget to subscribe, and also an event on July 13th about woman entrepreneurship is coming up. So go to Will the Dreamer Facebook site to get registered. There's a QR code that you can scan. Keep on dreaming, and until I see you again, bye.